Welcome back to Gold and Blue Dude, everybody, and this is an exclusive interview. I have Brian Jozwiak. He's a West Virginia great. I am blessed to have him on my show, so this should be a very, very entertaining interview. I've been looking forward to this for the past week. Mr. Brian Jozwiak, how are you doing this morning?
Chris, I'm speaking with the Gold and Blue Dude. I can't believe it. This is awesome, man. Hey.
Briefly describe your career at West Virginia, your time there, and the transition into the NFL, like the time frame.
I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I had a high school career. We played football Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Football wasn't big back where I was from, and during that time frame, lacrosse was the big sport back then. Even though we had the Baltimore Colts, football was just kind of a thing, and I had a pretty solid, I guess, high school career, but I was 6'6", 312 pounds my senior year in high school. Right away that was an attractive look, body size wise, back in the early 80s. I got recruited, and I got recruited pretty heavily. It started small. I got letters from like Richmond and Towson State and places like that up in the Northeast, and then all of a sudden it snowballed, and I took my official visits to North Carolina, Wake Forest, Nebraska, West Virginia, and the University of Maryland.
Well, back then, Nebraska was, they were a pretty dominating brand back there. What made you choose West Virginia over the Big Red Machine?
Honest to God, a couple things, but when I went out there on my visit, I flew out there on a Lear jet with a couple other players. We were in a freaking Lear jet, flew out there, just first class operation, went into the facility building, and there was about 200, there had to be 230 guys in there for winter conditioning, and they all looked immense.
Yeah.
And it was intimidating, but that was a program machine, like you said back then. That was Tom Osborne. I was a little intimidated by that, but honestly, it was probably more the distance. I would have loved to have been a part of that program because they produced some really quality offensive and defensive linemen. I wanted a very close-knit family, and I wanted my family to be able to come and see me play. And I actually took my Nebraska visit the week after I was in West Virginia. And I signed a letter of intent, and then I took a trip out to Nebraska and flew back. My dad picked me up at the airport, and I was so torn, because when I took my trip to West Virginia, I was so comfortable and felt like that was the place I needed to be. And later that week, I think it was maybe Thursday or Friday, there was a knock at our door in Baltimore there where I lived in Catonsville. It was Coach Nealon and Donnie Young and Bob Simmons, who was the recruiter for that area that was recruiting me. And they were at my front door. Coach Nealon had a couple of bags, big old paper bags full of fresh kielbasa. My old man, he was Polish, grew up in Buffalo, New York, and he smelled that fresh kielbasa. He's like, boy, you're going to Morgantown.
I'm glad you mentioned the thing that kind of tipped the scales, and that's playing closer to home. I've been trying to kind of educate West Virginia fans on the Big 12 and why West Virginia is not a fit in the Big 12. Obviously, we know that geographically, West Virginia is not a Midwest state. That's a fact. West Virginia is not a Midwest state. That can play a big factor in recruiting because, like you said earlier, the big difference between Nebraska and West Virginia was closer to home. And back then, Nebraska was a much bigger brand than West Virginia. So fast forward to today, West Virginia having to go head-to-head against an Oklahoma, a Texas, but we're in the Big 12, and those players would play far away from their players that we're trying to recruit from Mid-Atlantic, maybe the New England, your area, Baltimore. Yeah, the home games are in Morgantown, but the road games are halfway across the country. That has to play some type of factor as far as a recruiting disadvantage for us.
We're in the Big 12, so here's the way it goes for me. When we go on the road and play in the Big 12, we're going to go to one game that a kid from Texas or Iowa or wherever out there, Oklahoma, is from, and they're going to get to see their kid play once. When I'm in Morgantown, my parents, if I'm from Baltimore, can come see every home game. And then some, but they're not going to go travel to an away game. Their nearest away game is what? Iowa?
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Yep.
And my parents aren't going to drive from Baltimore, Maryland to see me play out there. And if they do, it's going to be one time in 3 years, just to say they did it and they could do it. Back in the day, the philosophy was, you put a freaking dot on Morgantown and you draw a circle around Morgantown of about 300 miles. There's enough football players in that zone to make a good football team, because if I'm recruiting in Texas, I get Morgantown is not the market that some of these other places are, but as far as a brand, West Virginia's got a brand that can go head to head with anybody in this freaking nation. The facilities in Morgantown are freaking and the fans are fantastic, in my opinion. But when I'm going to recruit Texas, the best guys in Texas, the best players in Texas are playing football in Texas in college. I just think there's enough talent in that area.
See, that's the thing that I didn't like about Dana Holgorsen. On his way out, he claimed that West Virginia University wouldn't be able to keep their best players in-state. In comes Neil Brown. He's gotten the best player in the state of West Virginia to stay in the state of West Virginia. Neil Brown is actually keeping the best football players in the state of West Virginia at West Virginia University.
They're going to build the program, which is what, again, you said, Neil Brown is doing a good job with that.
If you keep your best talent from your state in state, there's a part of me that thinks that those players would give maximum effort because they're representing their home state and they're playing for their home state. And then on top of that, if you can't win battles in your own state, how are you going to win the battles outside your own state? The win down there in South Florida, Jacoby Spells beating Miami, the Hurricanes, in his own backyard. So we're winning in our own backyard, and we won in Miami's own backyard.
That's the sell to be in the ACC. Now your fan base can follow. We got a great following, man.
And not only will we bring our own eyeballs if we're in the ACC, but we're going to bring more Pitt eyeballs because they're going to watch that game more than any other game on the schedule. We'll bring more Syracuse eyeballs. We'll bring more Louisville eyeballs, Virginia Tech. The list goes on. So we're not just bringing our eyeballs. We're bringing more eyeballs of the fan bases that are already there.
And then you get to rejuvenate some great battles. I mean, that West Virginia, Virginia Tech, everybody talks about the Pitt game and that rivalry. Well, let me tell you what, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, you're cross-state line rivals, man. I mean, that's heavy duty stuff. And the Pitt game, and I know we're going to play them this year, but the rivalry. I mean, that was the third longest running rivalry in the nation.
I mean, you look at South Carolina and Clemson. They're not in the same conference. They made it work. You can't split a that is something that's important to the state, to the university, to the people of the state of West Virginia. So for that to happen, that was total disrespect and disregard. There's always a way to keep it going and to make it happen. I've actually made some Pitt friends on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to that game in Heinz Field with some Pitt fans. How crazy is that?
As long as you're wearing a bunch of blue and gold, I got no problem.
And we already have an understanding. If there's a fight to break out, he said he would actually have my back, that he would never allow Pitt fans to get their hands on me. So he's actually got my back.
I know for me, in my personal experience, it didn't matter what the record was. It didn't matter none of that mattered. You knew that you were going to be in a 3.5-hour street fight. The game was brutally played, and it was fun to play in because it was just mano a mano. The one year we played them, we tied 10-10. It was the worst. I would have much rather lost that game than tie.
Yeah.
I mean, we battled for all those hours for nothing.
I'm blessed because I was born in 82. The duration of my life up till now, West Virginia has actually dominated Pitt. I didn't have to, get through the years of the 60s and 70s where Pitt dominated us. I did want to try to transition, though. The state of West Virginia football right now. The late, great Bobby Bowden, former head coach of West Virginia, rest in peace, said there was 4 stages to rebuilding a football program. Stage 1, you're at the bottom of the barrel, you're getting beat up by everybody. You're no good. You're a bad football program. Step number 2, you start competing, but you can't can't win those 50-50 football games. So you're a better football team. You just can't find a way to win those 50-50s. Step 3, you start finding a way to win those 50-50 football games. And then step 4, you start dominating. Right now, I think West Virginia is trying to step off of step 2 onto step 3. Because if you look at last year, everybody wants to focus on record. That's what counts. And I get it. And our final record was 6-7, counting the bowl. That's a losing record. But if you go back and look at all of our losses, 4 of those losses were 50-50 football games. Imagine if we were able to flip all 4 of those. That would have been a 10-win season. We have the defense locked down. In 2020, we had an elite defense, and we lost a ton of key players in the offseason. And in 2021, what happened? We took a step back, but we were still a pretty good defense. So Neal Brown is showing that he can maintain a really good defense even when he loses key players. We don't lose any key players this year, so I think our defense will be elite again. All right, let's step back over to the offense. West Virginia fans were complaining, myself included, not gonna lie, about the bad offense, saying, oh, Jarrett Doege needs to leave, and, that guy needs to leave, blah, 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 blah. And after the season, lo and behold, Jarrett Doege off to the transfer portal. Winston Wright off to the transfer portal. West Virginia fans do a complete 180. Oh, there's something wrong with West Virginia because all these players are headed to the transfer portal. Well, my gosh, you said they stunk in the regular season, and now that they're in the transfer portal, you're saying there's something wrong with West Virginia. Make up your mind. I will say this. Neal Brown, I'm giving him credit. He's realized there's a problem on the offense. He went out and got Graham Harrell, genius offensive coordinator, had USC in the top 25 year in and year out as far as offensive production. So I think our offense will take a pretty significant step forward. Nico Markle is looking like a really good prospect, phenom freshman, and Graham Harrell's also talking about Will Crowder.
Neal Brown's dealing with a bunch of Holgerson recruits, guys that didn't want to do it Neal Brown's way. You got to clean those guys out. They got to go, and he's got to go out and find his guys. It's maintaining a program. We talk about rebuilding. I mean, we've been climbing the mountains since, the 1800s. You got a new philosophy, you got a new coach, you got a new coaching staff. Neal Brown is legit, but he is one of the greatest self-evaluators. The guy doesn't make decisions without doing his due diligence. He's a first-class operator because he's true to his word. And I just had a recent conversation with somebody who has been on his staff and knows him. And I asked him point blank off to the side with nobody standing around, just me and him. I said, please give me the skinny. And this guy had nothing but praise. Bringing in an offensive coordinator with a resume that can do some things and having some new blood come in at quarterback. And I'm going to defend Dake. I'm sorry. Everybody can whine about him. He had some of the best numbers in the Big 12. The guy competed. The guy got death threats, man. I talked to somebody that's close to him. Yet the guy had a set of balls on him because he went out and he busted his tail, and he competed, and he worked hard. Where's he going? Western Kentucky? Let him go have a good experience there. But he's gone now, and now it's time to take a step. But you know what? We're going to have freshmen. You want to throw a freshman in there? Yeah, I mean, other schools have done it. Expectations, it's going to take time. Now we got Neal Brown has taken the offensive coordinator job off his plate. Now he can focus on being the head coach, because the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, they work with their staffs, they compile their game plan, they analyze the data, they do all that kind of stuff. That day-to-day development, they just need to keep Neal in the loop what we're doing, and let him make the big calls, let him make the big deals. Everybody wants to get on the offensive line. Let me tell you something. You got a center who's a true sophomore, never played center in his life. You got a right tackle who's a freshman, a true freaking freshman. You got another guy who was a transfer sophomore. Yep. Young guys. I've been around that O-line guy. I like him. I think we need to give him a chance. But, in the trenches, you got to have the dudes. You got to have the players, man. You got to have continuity that takes time to develop. You've got to have experience. And those young guys, we're going to be light years ahead of where we are now this upcoming season.
There's a bunch of things that lead me to believe that our offense is going to be completely different and much better. Number one, a great offensive coordinator with a proven track record. Number two, this is going to be the second year that this offensive line will be together. We get every single one of them back. They'll be even more gelled this offseason. I have faith that they will take a big step forward because we definitely have talent on the offensive line. They just weren't on the same step last year, but I think that comes into focus. The next thing is the way Graham Harrell calls game. Whenever there is a weakness, he likes to call a misdirection away from the weakness. So if he spots a weakness on the offensive line, let's say left tackle, he'll run a misdirection sweep maybe to the right side. He's good at disguising weaknesses, and then that way the person that's part of the weak chain can work on their craft until they're better, and then he doesn't have to disguise it anymore. And I think our running game is going to be much better. We're going to miss Letty Brown, but this year we're going to have Thunder and Lightning. Thunder, Lynn J. Dixon, the transfer from Clemson. This guy is a downhill runner. He's quick. He'll run you over. Now, right beside him, Tony Mathis. He's going to be your lightning. He's going to be your shifty guy, gets around the corners, runs those sweeps, runs those misdirections, and that was a key piece that was missing from our offense this past year, our run game. Letty Brown only went over 100 yards 4 times, and we won every stinking time he went over 100 yards.
What you just said right there, that justifies what we have to accomplish in the running game. If you don't control the line of scrimmage, then you can't win the game. You gotta have a running game. And let me tell you, that offensive line last year, there were some real glimmers.
Oh, after the bye week, they got better and better.
So, now they're lifting, they're training, they're working together, they're growing together. This upcoming season, this is when Blossom starts to open. There's only so many ways to block. But see, all that X's and O's stuff has language. Everybody's got their own language and their own philosophy and their own methods. This guy, Graham, coming in and melding into the coaching staff, them buying in, and them all working together. And I guarantee you that's what they're doing every day right now. They're grinding. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks out there that can, nitpick games and second guess all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, those are kids playing a college football game, and they're our guys. They're wearing our uniform.
Exactly
I
right.
guarantee you, there ain't one football player on West Virginia's football team that runs out on that field on a Saturday afternoon with the intent to lose. You go out there, and they're all busting their butt, and they all want to win, and they didn't get a win, and there's that group that just pounds the crap out of them in the social media and all that. But hey, know that these kids are kids, and every one of them wants to win. Now, like you said earlier, now they got to shift the gear and find a way to win. Right. Somebody's got to make the big play when it's necessary. Somebody has to step up and become that vocal leader. The naysayers, get behind and push.
Exactly.
Put your line in and just get behind and help push this machine in the right direction.
Mountaineer fans freaking out, oh man, we lost 4 of our receivers. Well, not all of them saw time, but Winston Wright was our leading receiver. I'll give you that, but he was the leading receiver of a bad offense. Having said that, when you have 12 receivers playing once every, 4 downs, 5 downs, because there's so many of them, they can't get into a groove. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that our wide receiving core has been whittled down. We still have great wide receivers. Caden Prather, I'm telling you right now, Caden Prather, I've been pronouncing his name wrong. I think it's Prather. That dude is going to be on another level this year. He's going to be the best wide receiver on our team this year. But we have playmakers at the wide receiver position, and they're going to see more time, so they're going to be able to get into that rhythm. Rhythm is a part of the game. Your quarterback needs to get into a rhythm. Your running back needs to get into the rhythm. Everybody. That does not exclude the wide receivers. Just because you have 12 of them that are really good and you're popping them in and popping them out every fourth down, that's not necessarily a good thing because they're not getting into their groove.
That transfer portal, first of all, if you want to get in the transfer portal, I'll hand you your bus ticket. You get the hell out of Morgantown.
Yep.
If you want to be in the transfer portal, then you don't want to be there, and you're not going to give your all anyway, and we wish him luck. Goodbye. Go.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, I didn't see any O-Lineman bail out.
I'm glad you said that because them going into the portal, maybe that was one of the problems of the offense because because they didn't really want to be there. So now we're seeing who really wanted to be here and who didn't. People that don't really want to be at a specific destination aren't going to put out their 100%. That's why it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you want guys that are bought in and want to be here.
At the end of the day, you know, a lot of these guys now are a little on the selfish side. It's all about me and getting mine and you know, getting an opportunity to make a little bit of money or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, they're not happy where they're at. They don't need to be part of the program. If you're not going to be part of the solution, then you need to get rid of them. And they get rid of themselves with this pork. The bottom line is, who cares who leaves?
Exactly, because the people that don't leave are the people that want to be here.
That's right. Those are the ones that are the people that you get behind and support and push, and we're going to be just fine. I think the future is bright. I just hope that the powers to be somewhere in this grand scheme of things can get us into the ACC.
The sources that I've been talking to have been telling me the same thing, even when the Big 12, they lost Texas and Oklahoma, but then got BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston. Everybody's like, well, no, you're wrong, because look, the Big 12 just expanded, so that means West Virginia is going to stay. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, they're right. That's what it looks like. So I keep on top of my sources, and they're not shifting. And it's different sources that don't know that I'm talking to the other. You know what I'm saying? It's separate times, so it's not like they have time to get with each other, or they know that I'm talking to the other, and they're all saying the same exact thing. And that's why I started doing videos on it, because that's not a coincidence. When you have 4 separate sources at separate times, at separate locations, saying the same exact thing, there's something to it.
You know what Hartfield is?
Hartfield?
Hartfield in Morgantown. It's the airport.
Yes.
Right? Are they lengthening the runways at that airport?
I believe so.
Well, then your rumors are correct, because that was part of the stipulation, that our airport needed to be able to service what it needed to be able to service. So you watch.
Well, that's what people don't understand. Even though they're in talks, there's other stuff that West Virginia has to do to get the final nod. So they're in agreement. The ACC and West Virginia are in agreement. There's little things and moderate things that West Virginia needs to change or expand on, whatever the case may be, and then they will get the nod. So right now the ball is in West Virginia's corner, and they're doing what they're supposed to do to get the ACC. And whenever all that stuff is done, then we'll see the announcement. Hey, but I know time is precious, and I definitely 100% appreciate you coming on the show. And we'll work out another time in the future and talk about some other stuff related to West Virginia.
Oh, sure. Hey, anything. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your channel here, and keep me updated, man. I'll come back on anytime you want me to.
Awesome stuff. Can I get a Let's Go Mountaineers?
Hey, let's go Mountaineers all day, baby. Thanks.
All day. Hey, I appreciate it, Brian. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you here in a little while.
Thanks. Take care, brother.
You too, bud. Let's go Mountaineers. One of the all-time greats at West Virginia, offensive lineman Brian Jozwiak. Man, what a great guy. Big guy. If you met this guy in person, your jaw would drop to the floor. This guy is a massive human being, but he's a great person. He has a great heart. So I definitely appreciate Brian Jozwiak coming on to the Golden Blue Dude channel. I'm looking forward to other interviews. We're getting the ball rolling. We had Eugene Napoleon on, Brian Joswiak. I mean, we've had some good people on, even some controversial figures like Brad Smith. I know. A lot of people don't like him, but if we can get him on here, we're gonna get him on here. Well, that's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.